I am 74 years old, and for 3 years my own daughter did not call me. Not on my birthday, not at Christmas, not on the gray morning her father would have turned 80. The phone sat on my kitchen table, quiet as a stone, and I learned to stop looking at it. And the hardest part was never the silence itself, honey. It was admitting my share of it. Tonight I will tell you the whole story, the way I have never once told it out loud. What pushed her away, what I got wrong for years without noticing, and what quietly brought her home. So pour yourself something warm and sit with an old woman while the evening comes down. Because if there is a phone in your house that has gone quiet, I am speaking to you. First, let me tell you who is talking, so you know these words were paid for in full. I am not a doctor. I am not an expert. I never wrote a book or stood on a stage. I am a woman who married at 20, raised 2 children, and buried a good husband too soon. I worked the front desk at a small clinic for 30 years, and I was proud of that work. My knees ache when the rain comes in, and I take my porch steps slow now, one at a time. I have been a bride, a mother, a widow, and lately a stranger sitting in my own kitchen. So I am not speaking down to you from some high and shining place. I am right beside you. My daughter's name is Claire. She is 41 now, though in my heart she is always 7. She has my mother's hands and her father's stubborn chin, and a laugh I had not heard in years. When she was small, we were close, the way a mother and daughter are before the world gets in. I remember the smell of her hair after a bath, and how she fought sleep with all her might. I remember thinking those days would go on forever, the small, warm, ordinary days of it. Nobody warns you that the last time you carry your child to bed, you will not know it is the last. She would climb into my lap while I paid the bills, and I would tell her, "Not now, later. Not now, Claire. Later, Claire. In a minute, Claire." I said those words 1,000 times. I thought there would always be a later. I thought love was a thing that simply kept. Like the preserves in the cellar, I thought it would wait on the shelf until I had time for it. That was the first thing I got wrong, and it took me most of my life to see it. The trouble did not come all at once. It came the way rust comes, slow and quiet and sure. When Claire grew up, she grew away, the way children are supposed to. That part was right. But I did not grow with her. I kept talking to the girl she used to be, not the woman she was. She moved 2 towns over for a job, and the miles became an easy excuse for both of us. We let the calls grow shorter. Fine, good, busy, love you, bye. A whole life in 5 small words. I gave advice she never asked for. I fixed things she only wanted me to hear and hold. She would tell me about her hard day, and I would tell her what she had done to cause it. I called it truth-telling. I called it love. I told myself a mother must say the hard thing. But there is a way of telling the truth that shuts a door, and I had not learned the other way. The last real fight was about her husband, a quiet man named Daniel I had decided not to like. I had reasons, or I thought I did. He was slow to speak and slower to smile, and I mistook that. At her own kitchen table, I told her she had settled. I said she could have done far better. I will never forget her face. It did not get angry. It got still, and that was far worse. She said, "Mom, you always do this. You find the one bruise and you press it every single time." I said something sharp back, the way you do when you know you were wrong and cannot stand it. And she stood up and she gathered her coat and she said, "I think we need some time apart." I thought some time meant a week, maybe a month. I did not know it meant 3 whole years. The first months, I was sure she would come around. She always had before, after all. I waited for the phone. I rehearsed what I would say. I kept my answers ready and my pride readier. Christmas came, and I set 2 extra places out of habit, then quietly put them away again. Her birthday came in April, and I wrote a card, and I did not send it, because I was still right. That is the thing about being right. You can be right and alone at the very same table. Winter turned to spring, and spring to another winter, and the silence just kept on growing. I want to tell you what those 3 years were before I tell you what finally ended them. Because if you are in that silence now, I do not want to rush you past it toward the hope. The hope is real, and it is coming. But first, let us sit together a while in the hard part. In the second year, something in me went quiet too, and I finally stopped rehearsing my case. When you stop rehearsing your defense, you start hearing your own part, and it is not easy. So let me give you the hard truths I had to face, sitting alone in that too quiet house. I will not dress them up. I earned each one the slow way, and maybe one will spare you the wait. The first thing I had to admit was that I had been loving Claire only on my own terms. I loved her the way I wanted to love her, not the way she actually needed to be loved. I gave her advice when she wanted arms. I gave her lessons when she wanted a quiet witness. A witness is someone who hears you and does not reach for a tool to fix you or fix it. I could have just held her while she cried. Instead, I handed her a plan and a tired lecture. I had been so busy being useful that I had forgotten how to simply sit near her and be still. The second thing I had to admit was that I kept score, and I did not even know I did it. Every call she missed, every visit cut short, I filed it away in a ledger in my chest. And when we spoke, that ledger spoke first, in a tired little sigh she could always hear. A ledger in the chest is a heavy thing to carry, and it makes your voice go thin and hard. Love that keeps score is not love. It is a bill, and no child wants to come home to a bill. The third thing was harder. I had made my daughter responsible for my own loneliness. After her father died, the house got so loud with quiet, and I leaned on her to fill it. I did not say it plainly. I said it in guilt, in little wounds, in the words, "You never call." A grown child can carry your groceries, honey. She cannot carry the whole weight of your happiness. It is not a child's job to be your reason to get up. That is a weight we must carry ourselves. When I put that weight on Claire, I did not pull her closer. I taught her that closeness cost too much. The fourth thing I had to face was my pride, dressed up as principal for 40 long years. I told myself I was standing on principle, waiting for the apology I was surely owed. But pride is a cold thing to hold at night, and it does not call you back, and it does not forgive. Principle is a fine thing to stand on, and a lonely thing to have supper with, night after night. I had a choice between being right and being close, and for 3 years I chose being right. Nobody hands you that choice out loud. You just wake up one day and see which one you kept. The fifth thing was the one that broke me open. I had done to Claire what my mother did to me. My own mother was a sharp woman who found the bruise and pressed it, just as Claire had said. I had spent my whole life swearing I would never be her, and I had become her without noticing. I heard my mother's cold little laugh come out of my own mouth, and it froze me where I stood. The words came out of me in her voice, and I never once heard it until my girl was gone. We pass these things down like heirlooms, the good china and the old wounds, both in the same box. And the sixth thing, the last one, was almost too simple to say. I missed her more than I feared her. I feared being wrong. I feared saying sorry and being turned away. I feared the door staying shut. But under all that fear was a plain and aching thing. I wanted my daughter back in my life. And one gray morning, I decided that wanting her back was bigger than being right about anything. That is the morning this story turns. That is the morning I stopped waiting for her to move first. Now, I want to be careful here, because I am not selling you a trick or a magic word. There was no perfect letter, no speech that fixed it all in a single bright afternoon. What there was small, so small you might not think it could carry so much weight. But small and steady is how a wall comes down, one honest stone lifted at a time. So let me tell you the small things I did, the ones that slowly brought my Claire back home. Not so you copy them like a recipe. Every family is its own country with its own weather. But maybe the shape of them will help you find the shape of your own first small step. The first thing I did was write her a letter, and then throw that whole letter away. Because the first letter was full of me, my hurt, my reasons, my long, tired list of buts. I read it back, and I heard my mother in every line, and I tore it into small pieces. The second letter I wrote took me 3 weeks, and it was only 4 sentences long. It said, "Claire, I have been thinking about what you told me at your table that day." It said, "You were right, and I have missed you every single day, and I am so sorry." No but, no because, no reason wrapped around the sorry to soften it back into blame. Just the sorry, standing there in the cold on its own, the way a real one has to stand. I walked it to the mailbox myself, slow on my aching knees, and I let it go. Then I did the hardest thing of all, harder than the letter. I waited without a ledger. I did not count the days. I did not decide that by Sunday she owed me an answer back. I told myself, I have said my true thing, and now her time is her own, not mine to hurry. 2 weeks went by, then 3, and I did not send a second letter to press her along. I had to sit on my hands some nights to keep from calling and undoing the quiet I had promised. Because a sorry that comes with a deadline is not a sorry. It is a demand in a soft coat. On a Tuesday in October, my phone rang, and the little screen said Claire, and my hands shook. I almost could not answer it, for fear of breaking the one thin thread between us. Her voice was careful. She said, "Mom." Just that, Mom. And I heard the whole 3 years in it. I did not fill the quiet with words. I had learned that much. I just said, "I am here, honey." And for a long moment, neither of us spoke. And that quiet was the first warm quiet in years. She did not forgive me all at once. I want you to know that, because the movies lie about this. There was no music, no running across a field. There was a careful call, and then another. The second call, she asked how my knees were. The third, she told me about her garden. The fourth call, she cried a little and said the hardest part was thinking I would never bend. We did not talk about the fight for a long while. We built a small bridge first, plank by plank. You do not pour your heart across a broken bridge. You lay one board, you test it, and you wait. The first time she came to the house, she stayed for 40 minutes and kept her coat on, and I let her keep her coat on. That was the whole lesson, right there in the hallway. The old me would have said, "Take your coat off. Stay. Why are you rushing? You just got here." The new me poured the tea, asked one question, listened, and let her leave when she needed to. She came back the next month and stayed an hour. The month after that, she took the coat off. Every visit, I made the house a soft place. No advice on the table. No old ledger open by the tea. I learned to ask about her life without turning her answers into a court hearing. When she told me something hard, I bit down on my advice until my tongue nearly bled. I said, "That sounds heavy," instead of, "Well, here is what you should have done, honey." 4 words. That sounds heavy. You would not believe how many doors those 4 words open. She started telling me more, because at last I had become a safe place to set things down. I stopped asking, "When will you come again?" and started saying, "It was so good to see you." One evening she brought Daniel, the son-in-law I had wounded, and my heart was in my throat. I had a whole apology ready for him, polished and long, and I could feel it wanting out. But I looked at his tired, kind face, and I set the speech down, and I just said, thank you. Thank you for being patient with an old woman who took far too long to see straight. He nodded, and he squeezed my hand once, and that was more than any speech could have done. I want to tell you about the box, because this is the part I think about the most. Up in my closet, there was a shoebox of every card Claire ever made me as a little girl. Crayon hearts, misspelled words, "I love you, Mommy," in letters that walked uphill across the page. During the silent years, I could not open that box. It hurt too much to see who we had been. After she came back, one slow afternoon, I brought it down and we opened it together at the table. We found a card she made at 6, a lopsided house with 3 stick figures and a bright yellow sun. She laughed at her own spelling. I cried, the quiet way you cry when something finally mends. And she said, "Mom, I forgot we were ever this happy." And I said, "We can be again, slowly." That box taught me something. The love was never gone. It was just folded up and put away. Under all the hurt and all the years, the crayon hearts were still there, waiting to be found. Your love for your child is like that too. It did not die. It is only in a box on a high shelf. And I thought, that little crayon house is still standing somewhere inside her, waiting for a door. Now let me speak to you plainly, the way I would if you were sitting across from me tonight. If your child has gone quiet, you may be carrying 2 thoughts that will keep you stuck. The first is, it is all their fault, and I will wait right here until they finally see it. The second is the opposite. It is all my fault, and I am too broken to ever fix any of it. Both of those are prisons, honey, and I have spent long time locked in each one of them. The truth is usually a shared thing. 2 people, both hurt, both waiting for the other to move. And somebody has to move first. In a standoff, the one who moves first is not the weak one. The one who moves first is the one who wanted the love more than they wanted the winning. It does not matter that you are the parent and you feel you are owed the very first step. Being owed a thing and receiving it are different countries, and the weight between them eats your years. If you want your child back more than you want to be right, then you are the one who moves. I am not telling you it will work the way it worked for me. I cannot promise you that. Some doors stay shut, no matter how softly you knock, and that grief is real, and I honor it. But I can tell you this: you will sleep better having reached than having only stood and waited. A sorry with no strings costs you nothing but your pride, and pride was never worth a daughter. Let me tell you why I think this works, the little I have come to understand about people. Not from any book, just from 74 years of watching folks love each other badly and well. A person can forgive almost anything if they believe you finally see what it is you did. What keeps a door shut is not the old wound. It is the fear that you will make it again. When Claire heard me say, "You were right," without a but, she heard something new. She heard safety. She was not waiting for a perfect mother. She was waiting for a mother who could truly see her. That is all most children want from us in the end, not to be fixed, only to be seen. People are not as fragile as their pride makes them look. Under the armor, most of us want home. I used to think love was mostly patience and sacrifice, the things a mother is praised for. Now I think love is mostly attention, slow, quiet attention, the kind that asks nothing back, the kind that says, "Tell me again. I am listening. I am not going anywhere. Take your time." That is the love I withheld from Claire for years, while calling all my worrying by its name. And it is the love I try to give her now, one Sunday at a time, for as long as I am given. And time does a strange and gentle thing if you let it, and do not try to force it. The same 3 years that felt like punishment were also years that softened us both. She became a mother's age herself and began to understand a few of my old fears from the inside. I became a woman with less to prove and more to lose, and that made me easier to be near. You cannot rush that softening. You can only keep the door open and keep the porch light on. Forgiveness is not a gate that swings open once. It is 100 small gates, and you walk slowly. Memory helps too, more than we give it credit for. The good memories do not simply leave. They wait, the way Claire's crayon hearts waited in that box, patient in the quiet dark. When two people decide to reach again, those old good days come out to meet them halfway. You are not building the love from nothing. You are only clearing the road back to it. So here is the one small thing I would ask you to do tonight before you go to sleep. Not the whole reconciliation, not the perfect letter, just one small and honest reach. Take a scrap of paper and write the name of the person your heart has gone quiet with. And under it, write the one true sentence you have been too proud or too scared to say. You do not have to send it tonight. Just write it and let yourself feel that it is true. Tomorrow or next week, you can walk it to the mailbox on your own slow and aching knees. But tonight, take it out of the box. That is the whole of it. Take it out of the box. Do not measure your reaching by whether it works fast. Measure it by whether it was true. I have a friend down the road whose son still has not called, and she reaches anyway every year. She says, "I would rather knock on a shut door than sit on my hands and call it dignity." And I think she is right. The reaching itself is a way of keeping your own heart soft. Every letter she sends is a small candle in her own window, whether or not he ever sees it. It keeps her tender and ready, so that if the day comes, the door on her side is already open. I think of the woman I was 3 years ago, setting 2 plates and putting one away again. I want to reach back to her and tell her, do not wait for her to call you. You call, not to grovel, not to lose yourself. just to say the true thing and let it stand there. I would tell her, the pride you are guarding is not keeping you safe. It is keeping you alone. And I would tell her what I now know is the plain truth. It is not too late. It is not too late. Last Sunday, Claire came for supper, and she did not keep her coat on, and she stayed till dark. My grandson, 3 whole years of whom I had missed, fell asleep on my couch with his shoes still on. And I sat in the lamplight and looked at the two of them, and my old heart was so full it ached. The phone that sat silent for 3 years now rings on Sundays, and I still jump to answer it. I do not take a single ring for granted. I earned that ring the slow and the humble way. If you take one thing from an old woman tonight, let it be this, and hold it close to you. The silence in your house is not the end of the story. It is only the middle of it. The middle is always the hardest part, where you cannot yet see how it all comes out. But you are still holding the pen, honey. As long as you are breathing, you can write the next line. And the next line can be a hand reaching out instead of a hand folded and waiting to be filled. Sunday nights, when the dishes are done, I stand a moment by the window where I used to wait. But I am not waiting now. I am only resting. There is a difference, and it took me years to learn it. I set 2 plates again on Sundays, and both of them get used, and I clear 2 cups after. That is not a small thing to me. That is everything. That is the whole of what I prayed for. And I do not need it to be perfect between us. I only need it to be warm and honest and ours. So do not lose hope by that quiet phone. Love does not expire the way we are so afraid it does. It waits in the box. It waits on the shelf. It waits for one of you to be braver than the hurt. And it may just be that the braver one, the one who moves first, is meant to be you. Thank you for sitting with me tonight and letting an old woman tell you the whole of it. If any of this found you where you live, stay with me a while and let us keep company. Subscribe and I will keep telling you the things I learned too late, in hope they reach you in time. Next time, I want to tell you about the friend I lost to a silly quarrel and never mended. What that taught me about pride between friends, and the letters I wish I had written in time. Until then, go and take your true sentence out of the box